Sound good coming through loud and clear?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, these are sensitive mics.
I know. I was very impressed. Like when we listened to the podcast before, like I was like, wow, at least some aspects of it. And there were some times where it was, it's kind of hard to hear, but in general, I thought it was pretty good.
The road noise was really super challenging.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What I realized by doing that kind of as a test was that I realized these are the mics to have instead of because we were using the wireless ones. Yeah. So having these, I want to outfit the van with where these can clamp on.
Oh,
and
nice.
So each person has their own one of these and then puts on the headphones. And then if someone wanted to, they could take off the headphones and still be talking and have the mic pick them up and have that option of headphones on or off. But yeah, I have one for each person. Yeah. So it's like a podcast van.
Nice. Yeah.
It's a good time to make a podcast. There's a lot of downtime if you're going on a 2-hour trip to somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect.
Full of people. Yeah, it was a fun test. Yeah, so it's Thanksgiving, and we're here at Paolo's house, and I'm sitting here with Paolo. And yeah, we're just gonna get into a little conversation about and just see where it goes. See what comes up, what wants to come through.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess we could start a little bit about talking about where you feel like you're headed in life next. Like what's instead of getting into the past, like talking a little bit about like where you're at right now and what you're looking forward to as next steps in your life. I know you have a trip planned to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what you're up to with that.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting that you started out with this question, because like this is the biggest unknown for me. It's like I know where I'm going. I know where I'm gonna be for a month, and as soon as I'm packed, I don't have a place to be back to, and in many ways it's kind of scary because I'm kind of like doing this alone, and it's always like, but I've done this before, but I've always had a destination. Like I've left a place. There was the general destination that I was going to be to. And, in the past, I left, the country where I grew up to go to a different country, not knowing what was going to happen. Same thing, came to the U.S., got married, and had a great life and everything. And now I'm at this point where I'm kind of excited in some ways because I want to discover what this new chapter would be. And at the same time, it's kind of scary because it's a blank new chapter that I have no idea what it's going to include. And I don't even know, like sometimes I wonder, like, am I going to meet new people? I feel like in some ways, like the world has decided to like abandon me in many ways. And it's kind of hard because I don't want to abandon it, right? Like I still want to work it out and work things out, things that work for me, with things that work for people, and like figure out a way to somehow have something, in common. But I've always had this challenge where seems like there's no great new beginning. There's no great new place. There's not an amazing start unless you abandon everything that you were before and start the new chapter, and it has to be from scratch. Otherwise, it is just somehow gonna have the imprints of the old chapter so much, and it's gonna like really affect it.
It's like the beauty of the blank canvas, but also that comes with the fears of the blank canvas, right?
Exactly. So I don't know how to approach it other than trust, because I don't really have a choice at this point. And I came to this place where I live right now, and I'm not sure that I want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I have conditions that I want, like it has to be in a particular way, or like I just feel like in some ways this place doesn't want me to stay either. Like there's something about this place, and I don't even like want to describe it as this city or this group of people or the friends or
Sure.
whatever. It's just kind of like there's a strange thing bubbling up that requires me to have complete trust that things are going to turn out okay. I look at myself and I feel that I am improving myself as a human, as a person, in many different ways that I didn't even think before that I could like I didn't think I needed improvement at some point in time anymore, because I thought I improved myself.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you've done all this work to create that improvement, and you thought like you got there. And it's actually happens a lot with men in general, because we do get tired at some point in time. I've noticed it because I actually had an opportunity for the last 25 years to be around men that are actually about 10 to 15 years older than I am.
Okay.
So they were getting already at a stage in their life where I can tell that they have made a decision that I don't want to change anymore because it requires work and there's some uncertainty. I want to continue to do whatever I'm doing. And I don't want to change my beliefs. I don't want to change my beliefs about the way the world runs, the my community runs, and so on and so forth. And so there is some certainty that somehow we feel that we need to have about things, and we don't want anybody to challenge it. We don't want to be challenged, right? And then it creates a little bit of security for us, for somehow to navigate the rest of our lives, especially as we get older. Especially people that are in their 60s and their 70s, they just want that, like, whatever you want to call it, they just want this guarantee that they're just going to have this coasting life. That people that pick up travel, and now they just, you see pictures on Facebook, they're going all these different places around the world, and it just becomes all about travel. Personal growth, I'm not sure it is about personal growth. It's just because they feel like I don't need more personal growth. There's something about getting older, especially for men. There's something about that. I don't understand it.
You're like, I'm done with the personal
Yeah,
growth.
exactly. It's like, and like I discovered that I actually did not start the drastic personal growth until I was 50.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then when I turned 50, I was like, oh, I have to get rid of all the bullshit that I was before. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And I need to start new, because I just realized that whatever I thought was true and normal and whatever it is, it's not. And so I had to challenge my own beliefs about the world, the things that I somehow labeled things, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, this and that. And like, I realized, and it had to do a lot with the brain injury. Like when you get a very drastic, something really difficult that challenges your entire life, that's when I think we start to think differently. Like for me, I don't know how long I'm going to live. I don't even know that I can live very, very long, just because of my circumstance. And most people, when they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I can only afford to support myself for a few years. But I also have this disability that's extremely challenging. And so I don't want to live so I can experience all these things for the next 20 years. I want to experience this moment right now. I want my moment, right this second, like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like this means so much to me.
Absolutely.
Like I want to thank you for like doing this, because
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
has been a dream to actually do this, because I'm just so tired of acquiring knowledges and experiences. I want to do something with it.
Share.
You know, I want to actually, for it to come to fruition.
Yeah.
You know, and I agree with you that, like, I had a challenge not too long ago with a friend. We were talking about reading and reading and reading and reading this book and reading that book. And I've read a million books. I'm very well versed in understanding, creating knowledge, building my knowledge, you know, understanding the different things around the world, the different things around me, the different disciplines and all that.
Yeah.
But sometimes if I don't do anything with it, that is what really is shame.
It's like it becomes a liability.
Yeah, it's just like I can tell you, oh yeah, I read that book, or I know this theory, and I talked about this. I was like, just do something with it. I mean, is it important? Is it going to make a difference to you and to other people around you? Is it going to improve people's lives?
Yeah.
And so, what I decided is like, I really want to spend the rest of my life being of service to others. I want to figure it out. I don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's where the balance is, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I have a
boundaries.
very strong, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of the takers and the leavers.
Yeah.
And like, I have to be very careful from the takers.
Yeah, me too.
And because although some people need my help, I don't want to become a crutch for them. And I don't want them to get used to using people as a crutch.
Right. It's like falling into that savior complex or the martyr complex in that archetype. And I've been through my own struggles with that over time, with having to really learn good boundaries and to really feel into what is the energy exchange here, and just keep checking in on that. And with some people, it's really easy and the flow is just really naturally back and forth. And then with other people, it's like, oh, I actually need to back off a little bit on the giving because I'm feeling like there's a little bit of a drain happening here.
Yeah.
And just putting up a little bit of a boundary and having some communication around it. It doesn't have to be this extreme thing where you cut them out of your life, but it's just having that awareness all the time about what is the energy exchange here and making sure it feels healthy.
Yeah. And you know, for me, because just like you said, I understand that, you know, how that works. And I can see how, like, you know, if I was to feed you, if I was to feed you every day, and then I become your crutch.
Yeah.
You know, I want to do it because I don't ever expect for anybody to like thank me. Like I don't do it because I want
selfless giving, and it's out of love.
Like,
and
because I see like if you're struggling and you're my friend, or like you're somebody that I think is a decent person, you don't even have to be my friend, or acquaintance or whatever, you know. But I know that if I somehow can give you that little bit of help to get you to where you become self-sustaining, and that you're able, but what I'm hoping, always hope, is that like you would be able to do the same thing for another person, and you don't have to do it for me. Like I don't, you know.
That's really beautiful that you don't have that attachment to who it's for. Just for someone, it could be for you. It could turn around and be for you when you need it, or it could be for someone else. Yeah. But
it needs to be, you know, organic but yeah, it's like. Yeah, so it's like we're trying to figure out, you know, how to do this in a way that does not create any expectations from me or from other people. Like, I don't want you to feel that you have an expectation that I should do something for you or whatever. You know, and I don't want to have any expectation myself.
I think part of that comes with trust and rapport that's built between friends and family. And what I think where it goes wrong is where people get extremely transactional, where they're almost like keeping score of like, oh, I did this thing for you, now you need to do this thing for me, and like it gets very transactional, and it's such a drag, and it's so exhausting when you take it in that direction. So it's really nice when you find people that you can trust and have that give and take flow, and have it not even need to be thought about, because it's just a natural thing. And people are more oriented to serving others, and so everyone's just serving out of maybe their cup is full and they're able to give, and maybe when their cup's not as full, then they're in more of a receiving mode until their cup comes back full again, and they go back into more of giving, and it's just an ebb and a flow, and it's really beautiful when it can happen like that.
I used to have this thing that comes up to me all the time during like a ceremony, and I always felt like afterwards that like my cup is overflowing. I always felt that my cup is overflowing, and I always thought like, hey, like, and I love the fact that it just encouraged me to just like not be afraid to give, although I am a little bit apprehensive sometimes, like again, for this whole situation when you give and somebody become used to taking.
Right.
And then like now they want to take all the time.
There's like a dependency created.
Exactly.
It wasn't intentional, but it happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like I want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
But like I would love to feed people all the time, and to, somehow, if that somehow can eliminate some sort of a worry or some sort of a, whatever it is on their end, to help them focus on other things and to be successful in doing the other things. And now, why wouldn't I do it? Like, so, but at the same time, again, like, I don't want to become a crutch, like for somebody, and then like be treated like, because eventually you do get treated like crap. Like even by the person that you just helped.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good dynamic for either person.
No, as a matter of fact, I can tell you, like I had a very important experience that taught me that. There was an older gentleman that I met a long time ago, and I used to interact with him quite a bit at a coffee shop, and we used to talk all the time, and we had like a lot in common, and we and I just like, it was a very fun person to talk to, very intelligent, has a lot of experience, and then like, but. Again, like, then I decided I want to help this guy. Like, he's a good friend. He's a decent person. He's an honest, all of that stuff. And then I felt really bad that I felt like he was going to be on the street. He was not going to be able to afford to pay, his rent anymore. And he was like dependent on something like Social Security. And like, I invited him like so he can come stay with me. I had an empty floor on my house. I was thinking like, you can save your money, not pay rent for maybe like, a while, and then, before it. And I was like feeling really, really good. And then somehow it created the situation where like, but then I was saying like, but like find a way to like produce an income as well. Like you have these skills, and just keep busy, like do something with the things that, instead of just sitting at a coffee shop all day long, reading the newspaper, like take a couple hours and like do something, bake some pies. You said you're great at baking pies, bake some pies. You have these people that own a restaurant, see, maybe they'll buy from you and they'll serve it, and you thought it was a great pie, right? So I was just trying to come up with ideas, and I was like giving him work to do around my house, just to kind of I wanted him to earn it, to not feel that I'm just giving it to you, And at the end, like his car burned down, and like he calls me, and I just realized that if he doesn't have a way to move outside of his house, he is not allowed to eat and cook in his house, as he always is like eating out, So I was like really concerned, what's going to happen to him if he doesn't have a way to like leave the house? And so I bought him a car and put it in his name. I did not want to have anything I don't want to have to claim it later, even if like, because I was sure like, because you never know, like somebody might stop talking to you, but I know he needs it. So I was like, okay, I'm just putting it in your name. You have your own insurance and stuff like that. And for some reason, like within like a few months after that, like we stopped talking, and he was getting a little bit defensive about, me giving him advice about certain things. And like, but I was like, come on, you're going to live with me. Like, and like, I have a lot of people usually at home. I throw parties, dinners and stuff like that. You kind of have to get used to being around people because otherwise, this won't work. You will be bothered. And so, but it will be good to have interaction with people. So anyway, where was I going with this? Like, just like
creating dependencies with a crutch, where someone uses you as a crutch.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and like, like I realize right now I'm a part of my life because I don't work. Like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be somebody that using other people as crutch. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, but I want to be useful, and I'll help someday. Like it's actually, Sean, it would be like me, like flabbergasted to find out like when you offer help to someone, that they question you of why you're offering help. I just had that happen like in the last couple of months. Somebody I've been helping free, no, nothing. Like and they were kind of like, why is he helping?
What's your motive?
What is the motive? I was like,
right.
Are you supposed to have a motive in order to help people? It's like, I'm just helping you because you need help. You told me you need help. I'm helping you, but really... I'm not going to work for you 8 hours a week. 8 hours a day. I'm going to come in and work like for 2-3 hours in a day, and I'll do whatever is needed. I'm just not going to do dangerous things that I'm not interested in doing, but like, hey, you need me to do this. You need me to move this. You need me to paint. You need me to... And like, it took a while for people to like really dare to like realize it's like, no, he wants to help. He never asked for anything. And we offer him even food or whatever. And he doesn't, I'll take a bite sometime or whatever, but I'm like, I'm good, And so like, I just realized like, that is very hard, like for people not to trust. Like, I always encourage people to like, ask for help. The worst thing you're going to get is a no.
It's true.
And don't take it personal. If somebody says, no, I can't help. Now, yeah, it's hard not to take it personal when your really close friend doesn't want to help you when you help them a million times and they have the time or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, maybe then you're kind of, you have to reevaluate your friendship, in that sense. But in general, it's just ask. And like, if you get used to asking for help when you need it, you'll find that people will be willing. You'll find somebody that will be willing to help, and then be very good at exchanging with them and offering help when they need it. So it's just a normal thing, give and take.
Yeah. That's something that I've had to work on a little bit, is being willing to ask for help and admitting that I need help, because a lot of times I'm like, oh, I got this on my own. I can do this, I can do that. But I've had a lot of experiences and lessons in life that have showed me that no, actually you do need to ask for help in this situation, because you're actually going to make things harder for yourself later by not asking for help, because, oh, now you hurt your back. Just that simple, those lessons. Yeah. So it's really beautiful to hear you speak of this way that you offer this generosity that has no strings attached, that's very community oriented. Like, I see you as a real asset to a community, like a true, like, beautiful community asset for what you offer with your cooking. You're an amazing cook, and you're just so generous with your sharing of food. It's a huge one there. And then also with your presence and willing to drop in with someone and hold space for someone. And you just have all these different things that you offer so generously without worrying about what someone else is going to give back. So that's really beautiful. If more people were doing that, we would have a much more amazing world. And maybe that's where we're headed, is more people doing that.
Yeah. And, I find it also very, like, I'm pretty amazed of what I learn from when I have these interactions and this kind of relationship with people in general. Like, things that I never thought I would learn, things that I never thought that existed, or ideas or whatever, so, but yeah, trying to keep this interaction to like, hey, I want to have fun with you. I want to enjoy a meal with you. Now, there's another thing that like, I'm so glad that you brought this up. This is such an amazing thing is like, I've had friends like that I've known for a long time. Right. And as I started to ask them, like, what do you see in me? Like, what is it about me that you feel, good about, or they think it's great, or, or the opposite. Like, what's like, what kind of, am I a shitty person? Like, what's some of the things that I do or say, or what are some of the things that maybe you're not comfortable with? Like, I would need to know. Like, if I would never know, like then I would never know why, like, you behave or act in a particular way, right? And I was actually pretty, and please don't take this personal because you bring this up and it's very important and it's something that I want to talk about. And you and I have not known each other for very long, so we've only seen certain aspect of me, right? And some of the aspects of me that you've seen, which I always like to share and display, is feeding people, cooking. Trying to meet their expectations as much as possible if I can, if I know how, right? And at some point in time, I was having this conversation with people, and when I asked them about, like, what do you see in me? What is it about me? What do you think I am? And like, what do I bring into this world? And it was so funny that cooking came up like almost 100%. And I mean, I love cooking. I love sharing, and I love community. That's like such a small part of myself.
But it's just obvious presenting things.
I know.
And so as I get to know you more, of course, I would probably start with something else, as I see more dimension. But it's the most obvious.
But it becomes like the label that you get stuck with, right? And that's when I decided, like, I really don't want to be just that. I'm not just that.
Yeah.
There's so many different aspects and facets of myself.
Yeah.
And so if that's the only obvious thing that people like experience and like, then maybe I'm doing something that needs to be done differently. Right?
Not necessarily. I think it's just time of being around you more and experiencing more of the dimension that's there you experience with anyone from spending more time with them. One other thing, I mean, I guess it's also obvious, is your dancing. You have this way of dancing. I think that other people pick up on probably like the cooking. So cooking and dancing are two of the obvious things you present that are special.
Okay, that's beautiful. I'm so glad you said that because I'm like, well, it's so funny because I love to dance, but people would only know if they've seen me dance. If they dance with me or whatever, that would become like,
So I've only seen you dance outside of ceremony, and it's really flowing and beautiful, and it creates a certain vibe in the room, and it's amazing to watch. But I've heard of people saying that inside of ceremony, you will also dance, and how much that brings to that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's another part. That's another aspect. It's cool, The reason why I say what I said is because I like most people that I know. For example, most people don't know that I actually, the work that I've done, I've always been a leader, and I never really like sought to be a leader. I just end up being the leader.
Those are often the best leaders.
Yeah. So I was like, and like right from the beginning, like, for example, I'm going to tell you like an experience that I had, which is flabbergasting. I'd like never understood how it happened, but it just happened to me. It's like when I tell people like, do you know that my first day on the job in the banking system was a bank manager. Right from day one.
Not a teller.
I just started out as managing a bank. Somebody says, I know like how you troubleshoot things and you make things work. And I've seen how you made things successful. And I have a very, very strong need for someone like you. And this branch of this bank, if it does not pass the audit, like in a couple months, it will be shut down because it has not passed like the last 3 audits, and there's only a certain amount of audits. And audits is essentially when they bring auditors and they verify everything you're doing. And if you're not doing things based on regulation, they have to shut down the branch because that will cost, that will, you know, the Federal Reserve and the bank and
fines.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what they said. They just like, can you be the branch manager and can you make this work? And I went and made it work, and it became the most successful branch, you know, and passed. And like even the auditor herself just looked at me. She's like, I have no idea how you did this.
Wow.
But this takes a lot of dedication because I know that you did not know shit about banking. Like you had no idea. You had like, obviously you had to learn all this by yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I was reading books for like hours and hours every day. That's where
that reading comes in.
yeah, exactly. So like I figured out like how, like what are the most important areas that I needed to make sure that are done successfully and correctly to pass an audit. And I did. And then like right there from there, you know, before that I was a hotel manager. And again, same thing. I was actually hired to be an assistant manager for this, you know, great guy that was a manager, and like we got along really well. And like no matter how badly I made mistakes, like he still wanted to keep me. Some of the mistakes I would not have kept me, you know, the big mistakes with a lot of money. Like, but it was a mistake that I made that like he was kind of caused that he wasn't paying attention.
Oh, so it's shared responsibility.
Yeah, shared responsibility. Yeah, exactly. So shared responsibility. I was supposed to like I was actually like learning to do the accounting for the hotel, and I was like, for some reason I was not setting aside some of the taxes in an account and paying them on a regular, you know, like you have to pay them almost on like daily basis. And I was not doing, I did not know how to do that. And I was not taught how to do that. And then figured out that a couple months later that like we were like again, not operating within regulations, and we had to pay fines and stuff like that. But yeah, so the thing is like somehow if I figure out, you put me on a task and I figure out how to make it work, from there, it's just easy for me, right? It just takes a long time. I worked for a high-tech company with software. I had no idea. Like I had no idea what to do. Like, and I just studied for 12, 15 hours a day. I would like, that's like a lot of times I would go for like months, and I would like learn how the software works when nobody was willing to teach me. Like literally I had a situation, like people did not want to teach me. Like they were thinking like, this is a complete idiot. He's not a techie. Like we need somebody that actually is a techie to do this. And I was like, no, you need somebody that is actually able to build rapport with the people that are going to learn.
A bridge.
And exactly. Yeah. And then like, if you can teach me how this works in an easy way, so I can teach them in an easy way how it works, then they'll be thankful, and then they'll want me to teach them more. And like, it doesn't matter whether I'm an expert at the end. It just matters like if I can get them get the foot in the door, somebody help them out,
right? And
if they're smart enough in the technical world, they'll figure it out. But I'll teach them how to start out, and like, and after 2 years, they would not do without me. And as a matter of fact, the customers, like CFO of companies, would literally ask me to go train their people. They're like, don't send anybody else, please. Like, we need this guy because we've been trained by this guy, and we feel that he was the only one that was able to teach us. And like, we were able to actually gain the knowledge. You guys are all techies, and we can't really, like, we're accountants. We just need to learn the software, how it works. And so then I am here on stages given these conferences because the CEO is like not allowed to give the speeches because the customers that are buying millions of dollars of software, they're unhappy because they don't understand what he's talking about, you know? So it's kind of like, it's like, oh, we want this guy. So I'm there, you know, so I find myself in these kind of situations all the time. I look at like, I'm trying to figure out the need of the people that I am going to be working with. If I see that they have a weakness, I don't make fun of them. Like I was made fun of myself. Like I was like treated like shit because somebody is like, oh, he's an idiot. He doesn't know all these things and like blah, blah, blah. And like whatever.
He's not part of our club.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, no, that's the person you need to go out of your way. Like, so I actually, the most rewarding experience was going to a company, and the second in command person, like, I was going there to teach him the software. It was completely against the software, did not want the software, was very, very antagonistic. She was antagonistic to me, as well as I was trying to train the whole group. And I just realized with her behavior that she was actually feeling uncomfortable and threatened, and she wasn't learning, she wasn't getting it and whatever. So I just went to her office on break and I said, listen, like, I want to make sure, because you have this software, a big part of it is you're going to use it, and you're probably going to be the only one that is going to use it because you're the accountant. And so how about I come in and then we do a one-on-one, like, with not the whole class of people present, and remove the threat of you asking questions. Essentially, I did not say that to her, but that's what I was meaning by it. It's like, so I removed the threat of you asking questions that may make you sound like you don't know you don't know anything about software. And we'll go from there. And the owner of this agency that I was at, like, took me out to dinner to like one of those like private clubs to thank me. He's like, I was so terrified. Like, this is our accountant. She's gonna retire in a year or two. We do need her to learn the software, but we need kind of her blessing that it's okay, like, for us to go ahead and, you know, have this. And I just thought it was going to be a disaster. And she just talked to me right before we left of how comfortable she felt that you spend 2 hours with her, you know, go over and stuff. And she feels a lot more comfortable, and she's okay with it right now. Instead of being the worst enemy, she is like, okay, you know, I'll work with that.
That's beautiful.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's how you work with people.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, sometimes it's just about being uncomfortable with the unknown, or something new, some new discipline, some new something, you know. And I know personally, like, when I was working with software, how uncomfortable I was. And I did not want anybody to know that I didn't know shit. And so, like, then I just learned it. For me, it took hours and hours and 12 hours a day to, like, learn it. Other people are not going to do that. You know, they're going to be like, nah, I don't have the time for that. I have a family, I have this and I have that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that is so I'm trying to figure out, and like, how do we bring this, like, all together? It's like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how I can use this ability, this skill, as I interact with people. And it doesn't have to be a particular group or whatever. It's like, if I interact with people, like, you know, give them some ideas and talk together about certain ideas about, you know, even whether they have a career that they're working on, or whether they have, like, personal life, or even, like, with partners, or with women, or with, you know, men, or whatever. Like, it's just trying to figure out, like, you know, here's what I notice. Here's what you bring to the table. Here's what I think could enhance your ability to have success. Here are the things that I noticed that can potentially bring failure. You know, can I help you in a particular way on how to present this thing, or how to approach, you know, this thing?
So it's a little bit like mentorship.
Yeah.
Some of that.
I used to be like, I don't know if I told you this, but like, one of my biggest job in the last, like, probably 7 or 8 years, and I think there was, like, at least, like, 3 or 4 of those years, like, I'll teach people how to be a public speaker.
Oh,
because I'm a public speaker.
You are? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm a public speaker, and I'm trying to teach them, and like, I try to teach them that it's a lot simpler than you think.
Yeah.
But it takes work, and it takes, like, you know, so, and sometimes when I share with them some of the very, very interesting, easy details, and they're like, oh, no, it can't be. It has to be a lot more complicated than this. And I was like, no, actually, it's pretty. So, like, the first thing I did, I told them, I was like, you know what you can do? Like, the first thing you can do, get in your shower and speak while whatever you are going to have, the conversation that you are going to have with whomever you are going to have it today, and practice in the shower. And what are some of the things that like you number one, you want to articulate what you're going to say. You hear yourself, how you say it, right? And like figure out your eye contact. Like, but most people don't realize like eye contact, how important that is.
That was the hardest part for me, was the going around and making the eye contact, because I felt like by default I would kind of just like, be constantly moving and sweeping back and forth. I'm like, that's not the right way. I need to stop and make eye contact with individual people. Yeah. I did a little bit of Toastmasters back in the day, like maybe 12 years ago. Yeah. So I have a little bit of public speaking experience.
I was going to say, like, I was just watching you, the way you're looking at me as we were talking right now. I was like, oh, like, you know how to do this. And this
with one person. Yeah, but when it's an audience of people, it's a different level. Yeah.
Well, with the audience of people, this is like, it's just a skill. Like, you have to figure out, like, so number one is like the eye contact. Mm-hmm. That's important. So how do you make somebody feel that you're talking to them, mm-hmm. but you're making sure that everybody's getting that same feeling?
Yeah.
And that you're interacting with them, and then that you acknowledge them, you honor them, and if they ask questions, that you reaffirm to them of how important the question is that they're asking, and how I'm going to go out of my way to and then how you stand in front of a group. Like, most people don't know this.
The posture, the body language. Yeah. Are you open?
You open hands, like that.
Use your heart.
Exactly. Like, that you're not hiding anything, and like if you pace incessantly, like you need to stop, but you do need to.
You need to move about a little bit.
Yeah. And then if you have a big room, but being a public speaker, like I had to like teach people, like, because I was passing on the baton to a lot of people that were the actual authors of books that I was actually talking about, in these conferences.
Cool.
Like, I had to teach them how to teach.
Oh, wow.
So, like, how to talk to this, like,
teach the teachers.
Yeah, exactly. So like you're going to, so the way you move, the way you speak, the tone of your voice, how you stop sometimes, how you ask questions, and like, so there's so many different skills that if you can actually, so I put together like a 3-day training, and I would make people like, and then I would ask them to like have these presentations. This is like what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to, interact with people. And so that's another skill. Like I feel like I have a pretty solid understanding of how it works. I'm definitely know that I'm not the best public speaker in the world, but I'm a pretty darn good public speaker. And as a matter of fact, it happened when I was like probably like 6th or 7th grade. I figured it out, and I was put in a very tough situation, and it just opened up a door that I had no idea that was going to be like a lifelong thing.
Wow, that's cool to have it that young.
Yeah,
have it start that young.
Yeah. I was at a, like, in my school, I was participating in a like around Christmas, like you write poems and stuff like that. There's like a newspaper in France. So I'm living in Beirut, and there's a French, Lebanon was a French colony, and like, so there's always this connection between the France and Lebanon, and so they actually asked all like every school to elect the best, somebody writing a poem, somebody writing a story or whatever, and submitted, and then I became like one of the top 3 in the country to be picked, and they just had to pick like one. And I did not get picked. And like the principal of the school that I was at, we were in recess, and he just said, "Why don't you come up? We're going to put you on a chair." And the whole school is lined up in single files, in front of me, and recite the poem that you wrote for this competition, because we think you represent our school and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like put on the spot right there and then to go up on a chair and recite this thing to the whole school.
Wow.
And I just did that right there and then. No fear.
Didn't even think about it. Just did it.
I loved it.
Wow.
And I was like,
so cool.
And that's just opened up the door. Like after that, I just like walked into this feeling very comfortable with it. I'm in school or whatever, and then like I just realized that this is what I enjoy doing. I'm not afraid of people, not afraid of groups. I meld very well within group and stuff. So, and guess what? Like eventually, I'm like a public speaker. For I'm at like a certain age, and I was just realizing like I'm doing exactly what I did when I was like 12.
I love that. Yeah. I had a question for you. I wanted to ask about the public speaking before I forget it. And that is, what do you do if, when you're making that eye contact with specific members in the audience, what happens if you're making eye contact with someone and they are sending you such a weird vibe and they are, to the point where it almost trips you up? How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, so that depends on what it is. So the other thing is that you have to understand personalities. So that's another thing I teach. I teach people like there's so many different personalities. There's, I call them the smart-ass personality, the challenger personality. There's a personality, the person that wants to talk, wants to hear themselves talk. There's the shy person, and so depending on, what they are, like depending on also what is the setup. Like, am I just a public speaker where I'm just going to talk about a book or a theory? Or is it more about like a work challenge thing, like where I'm teaching something, a skill that they need to learn and they need to ask questions, and they may have problems with the way, like I'm like, sometimes that's something I was very aware of, is because I was working for a software company which the software didn't always work. And if most people don't realize that, especially with startups, like it's a joke. Like sometimes they're like, we have this feature, but I know it doesn't work.
Just in perpetual beta.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, they're like, and you're like, oh, I know it doesn't work. Why do you have that feature? Why does it look like we can click on this button and do this thing? I was like, yeah. So I'm always like with engineers, I was always getting into fights because I'll be like, people are asking about this. Like, and it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And they're like, yeah, we're still working on it. Like, we have no idea what's, it's like,
Ghost in the machine.
Yeah, exactly. But so depending on like what it is that they're displaying. So sometimes if they're displaying discomfort and I can't tell, so I would be just like, I would say, oh, no, I would like to stop it for certain questions. And so one of the things that I do as a public speaker, I don't always pick the person that lifts their hand, because the person that, if you always pick on the person that lifts their hand, this is the person that can be the person that wants to always talk so they can display their knowledge, so their boss can hear them, or so you can hear them potentially, so you want to be careful, especially within certain companies where that person actually displays that behavior all the time. So they get annoyed with you giving them
the stage,
right, all the time, right, because they steal it and then they don't want to give it back,
run amok with it.
Yeah. So what I will do, I'll say something like, Sean. So that's another thing about being a public speaker, is like, so one of the things that I do is like, I'm at the door as they walk in, I shake their hands, I look at their tag, I look at trying to memorize their name as much as I can. I could do that up to a certain point, certain amount of people, but then I'll always have them with their name tag. So I'll try to, like, when you use their name, first of all, and if you actually knew their name without seeing their name tag, they feel special. Like if I say, hey, Sean, and you're like, I have no idea how you remember. Like there's like 50 people here and this is the first time I met you. And obviously I mean something to you, And so I don't know what that means, it's good or bad, but it's something. So I was like, hey, Sean, I wanted to ask, if you have any questions or concerns or like anything to say, because I noticed that when I was talking about this, that looked like you had a question about it, or like you look, like maybe there's something there that so I try to interact with a lot of respect without challenging or whatever. And then if whatever you're asking about, I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't know what the answer is, I will not give you an answer. I will say, I'm going to write it down. because I want to look this up because I'm not certain that I know the answer to what you just asked. And I want to make sure I give you the right answer. So I'll get to the right people, but I'll make sure that it's you. And I can get back to you. As a matter of fact, I want everybody to have the answer for. So that immediately makes that person.
That builds
like,
rapport.
Yeah.
This person's
feels
not
like
BSing me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually had an amazing experience. I was at a training in Washington, D.C. at the federal government level with agency like leaders. And they asked me specifically to sit next to a person while the other speaker that I was training, who wrote the book that we are actually doing this training for 5 days on. So when he was up there, you know, he wanted me to stay next to this person to potentially answer questions right away, you know, and to build a little bit of rapport. And he was given information that this is the most difficult person to have in any of these conferences, and would ask some difficult questions and will challenge and will do this and will do that. And I had like no idea like how, like, so people can say things, but you know, it might not materialize in that sense. And so then I'll be like, okay, so I'll just sit next to this person. I built a rapport with this person. So I looked at her and I just saw like she has cycling stuff. So I'm like, hey, like I'm a cyclist. Like, tell me more. Like, you cycle here in the city.
So
like,
finding a connection point.
Finding the connection, talking, you know, with the person, honor their, you know, whatever they're doing. It's like, you know, making sure that they give them the respect.
Suspending judgment. So you're not coming in judging them already for being that person they've been described as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like at the end of the day, this guy that was doing presentation came to me and like he bought me dinner and bought a bottle of wine. And he's just like, I just want you to know that you just saved the day. And we have a $5 million contract with the federal government. And this person could put the kibosh on the whole thing. And I have no idea like how you did that, but thank you for doing that because it allowed me to speak the whole thing and not be interrupted like a million times and blah, blah. And I was like, and he's like, all the feedback that was given that she was going to make my life hell.
Wow. That's huge.
And she was so kind and like attentive in the way she asked questions and like,
wow.
And because I was on her, like on her side, just being her friend, in this new person,
she needed to be heard and seen, and you provided that.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So it was like, it was simple. Like, that's what I do in life in general. Like with my friends, with acquaintances, with my employees, with like all of this, you know, but I'm not like a doormat.
Yeah, that's important.
In general. Like I don't behave like a doormat.
Yeah.
But I will tell people that, you know, I'm pretty solid about certain things. There's certain things I'm not going to like allow to be dragged into or whatever. But for the most part, I'm very interested in seeing how your perception is, like how you're interpreting things. And I want to know, you know, what made you interpret things. And I'm genuinely wanting to know, like, instead of wanting to challenge it all the time. So anyway, so that's kind of like the ability to that is like a skill that like I see that is being lost in general, is being able to communicate in ways that create this rapport, give and take, learning,
building
teaching,
bridges,
you know, building the bridge, you know, and what I was going to say also is like, it's very important to me, just related to what I just said about like when I turned 50, like I just realized I needed to say the word, to see the world differently. The way I saw the world was not satisfactory to me anymore, because I also figured out that I saw the world because I was influenced by certain ideas that kind of influenced the way I saw the world and I interacted with it. And then I was no longer satisfied with that. It was just, you know, to me, it felt like, wow, like I'm just turned 50 and now I have to change everything. And people are looking at me, and I know that some people will be like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Like, why is he doing what he's doing? You know, what is it? Like, he just lost, you know, like the credibility or whatever with me because, you know, he doesn't think like me anymore. And I'm like, well, how do I think? Like, and that's what I think I realize is that it's good to like acquire how the community around you operates, the things that make people feel like when we go to ecstatic dance, like I love to dance, right? I just hate the speeches that go on forever before the dance. Like I can't stand it anymore. Like it feels so disingenuous, and like and I know like Paul, like when he gives this like and asks people to give the speeches, and I think he's doing his part. He wants to make sure that everybody's safe.
To create a container.
Create the container,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But then sometimes the speech goes into blah 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 blah. It could be like 5-minute thing, and it could turn into like a 15-minute thing.
Yeah, and you can get people's egos coming into it.
Exactly.
And it's just, it pulls you out of why you're there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Now you're off on some tangent because of someone's ego.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and so that's one thing that, I try to, like, I love to dance. And I actually think I actually like Paul, although I don't know him very well. I don't know him at all. Like, you know, but I think he's a very genuine person, like super kind, super nice. And he's running something, he's making something work. But that's the thing is like, I'm trying to also challenge myself. Like, why do I not want to sit through this whole thing? Why do I feel uncomfortable? And, you know, some things just don't make sense, even when they're saying them. Like, I'm not sure they're realizing that they're saying something that's nonsense. Like, you know,
it's almost like they're reading a script. It's some sort of internal script that's been created for them. That it's not really authentic.
Come listen to what you're saying. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And they're like, what are you talking about?
And I think a lot of that's, it's an immaturity. And so a lot of times when I see an immaturity in someone like that, I can shift my perspective into having compassion for them. But it does get to a point where it's like, yeah, this is going on too long. I'm feeling roped into something that I didn't sign up for.
Mm. Well, there are parts of it that are actually kind of concerning because the words that are being said just don't make sense, and everybody's agreeing.
Oh, I see.
And I was like you just listen to nonsense.
We're not going to question this.
Yeah, like
we're just going to go with it.
This is as simple as it is. You know, when you go to ecstatic dance, you know, that first thing the one thing they always talk about is the ribbons, and like how the colors of the ribbons, the yellow, green,
so this is a ribbon you wear on your wrist.
Yeah, exactly.
To denote what kind of dance you're open to, exactly. What kind of interaction with other people.
Yeah. So if I wear the red, that means I don't want to dance with anybody. Please don't come up to me. You know, that's to me, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm wearing red, that means like I want to be by myself. You know, I want to dance by myself, and I'm not interested in. That's the way what it means to me, right? And if it's yellow, I think, right? The second color is like that's like I'm lukewarm. Like, hey, if depending on the situation, I might or might not. You know, and if it's green, like, hey, I'll dance. You know, with you. And that makes sense to me because you have to leave simple instructions for people to understand what these ribbons mean so they don't make the mistake. Like, if your ribbon is red, I'm not going to try to dance with you. I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to dance with you. I'm not going to dance in front of you, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you proceed afterwards in saying, but the red means also that I'm open, but it has to be me. That is like, and how am I going to know that? Like, and then green means like, although I'm open, but I might still say no. And so like now you're confusing. Now you're saying things that just don't make any sense. Right? So go change the ribbon if you change your mind.
Yeah. Go to yellow maybe.
Yeah. Go to yellow. Like if you realize that, hey, red is like, no, I want to like, maybe somebody comes up, which to me also means that there was problems in the past to where, like, say you are an attractive female or you're attractive male and you're dancing, right? And you're smiling and you're whatever. There's a pretty good chance that quite a bit of men or women are going to want to dance with you. Number one, because you dance well. Number two, because you're attractive. It's just pretty normal. Like, there's not a whole lot to this one, right? And so, yes, of course, if you're especially if you're an attractive female, like, you don't want to end up having to, like, every male that wants to dance with you, you know, that want to dance with them, right? So you kind of you want to have your pick, right? And there's also the all the way around. There's like the person that is traumatized, that doesn't want to be having people, around them. But all of a sudden they have this Sean amazing looking friend that comes up in front of them and is dancing. And I would love to dance with them, but now I have the wrong ribbon because like I'm communicating no. Well, I really want to say yes. Right. So that can be.
So you need a way to take the ribbon off quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Or change it, like put something. So, but anyway, so it's simple as that, right? It's as simple as that. Sometimes it could be these situations, and that's when with ecstatic dance. That's how I was like, okay, I'm just gonna skip the whole first part. I'm not gonna dance with anybody. I'm just gonna dance with myself. And I enjoy doing that myself. It's just a lot better for me. Unless I'm dancing with somebody that actually knows how to dance and that is willing to dance in a way that's, and I never try to do anything that would be offensive or like, unless I'm there with a partner.
Sure. Sure. If that's the vibe, that's mutual.
Exactly.
How would you explain ecstatic dance to someone that doesn't know what that is yet?
Ecstatic dance, I think is self-expression through your body, listening to music. And I ended up like kind of like having a little bit of different understanding that I think the usual thing is about ecstatic dance. The different understanding is that like I want to express what's right now in my body, in my mind, the experience that I'm having, and I want to do it physically, and I want to dance by myself. I'm not wanting to be noticed. It's not about me doing something to be noticed, but to be in touch with my body and to fully express what I'm going through. So almost like improv. And the way I was trained in improv was about telling the story that's actually like you want to tell through dance and through the body. Right. And so I did that in improv for a while, which again, I just discovered recently because I went to an improv class and I just realized it's not what I thought. Like the teacher that taught me improv taught me something different. And so, so sometimes there's like this thing like whether there's music or there's no music, and there's interaction, there's no interaction. And then but what I actually like, want to try to do always, okay, is, and I can tell you this, this is related to dance, like how I dance and why I do what I do when I dance. It's also similar to how I am present in ceremony in general. I come across potentially for some people looking at me in these kinds of setups and settings is that they feel that I'm always this lucky, happy, fortunate, having great fun, potentially taking some drugs person. And just so you know, for example, at ecstatic dance, I've never taken anything. I actually haven't taken much in my life recently, probably in the last year or so. It's just because I want to be present. I don't need something. And I want to experience reality the way it is, not the way I want it to be. And then if I need to change that because I'm uncomfortable, it doesn't make sense to me or whatever, then I'll do something different. But I want to experience reality the way it is.
I think that's a really good way to articulate it, because with psychedelics, they're amazing tools, but when they start to become something that you're using because you don't like the way your reality is, that's, I think, where you get into problems. Yeah.
So like now you're hitting like on a really, really like important point. That's kind of like my, my apprehension with psychedelics is because it leads, and I don't think I would say it leads people, but I'm not saying that this is the psychedelic's fault that it's leading people, but the interpretation that people have. Like, I'm going to take the psychedelic and I'm going to have these experiences You know, the part that I've always learned with psychedelics, especially with something like ayahuasca or mushrooms, is that we by taking these substances, there is an impression that if you take it often and long enough, that somehow you will change the reality outside of you. You know, and which doesn't make sense to me at all, that this is something that you would be able to do. It's just, this is a fallacy. You know, what I think you're able to do is change inside the way you interact with the world outside of you. And so when you change inside, you're having a different experience now. Right? So like, we are not expecting that the world outside of us is going to change anymore. We're actually expecting that we can change to have a different interaction with the world outside of us, right?
Do you believe, sorry to cut you off, do you believe that the internal, that you're changing in yourself directly starts to attract different experiences on the outside?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happens. It's like, I just realized that, like, oh, like this is, I did not understand. Like I was never able to understand like this, how it happens, and this interaction with these people, these individuals, or this, you know, whatever, this function. And it's just because I like, you know, I did not really think or expect that I needed to change, and I needed to see things differently. And so the part that I have quite a bit of a problem with is that it's actually beautiful and it's great when you're having this experience and the things that are changing internally and the way that you're interpreting the world ends up being also something that you can share and have in common with other people, with a group of people. So now you're feeling safe, you know, and like, which I think there's a great benefit to that. Like if you and I, like, because we're taking, you know, psychedelics, we're seeing things differently, and then we're like, you know, somehow
and you're integrating together.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that creates community around that.
Exactly.
And trust.
Yeah. And the way it goes wrong is when we start to have very strong interpretation of how and what's name we're going to give it, and how it's described, and how it's done right, and how it's like, you know, so we get too much in our heads trying to set up parameters and rules and trying to say like, it's got to be this and it's got to be that, and it's like, and then like, I feel very uncomfortable when this happens, because at the end of the day, like, the experience that I'm having is always going to be different in so many ways than the experience that you're having. There's going to be some commonalities. That's what brings us together, right? But the expectation that we're going to say the same things, we're going to have the same beliefs, we're going to have the same like interpretations and all of that, that's bullshit. You know, that's not, and that we're going to share them. And then there are going to be moments where we're going to share and we're going to have similar beliefs and we're going to get excited. But there's also going to be times where we are not going to have some similar beliefs. And as a matter of fact, we might have challenging times where we will believe things completely separate, completely different, you know, and we're just going to have to be okay with that. And I have to always keep my mind open, because, you know, I always think like, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I want to be able to have, between Sean and I, have this rapport, trust, that if and when I feel more comfortable with what you're saying about something, or what you think something should be, or whatever, I don't have to feel uncomfortable by saying, you know, you're right. Like, I just like, I'm glad that like you kind of demonstrated that to me, you know, and like, we have to have the courage to be able to like be that way.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Push through the discomfort.
I have to like know when I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I have to have the comfort level that I can be wrong and just not feel stupid and not feel uncomfortable. And I have to give you the same privilege
and grace.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and if we can do that together, there's people that do that pretty well, and I love interacting with them. And sometimes I think they have, there has been situations where some people like felt like that I was right on board with them thinking the same way. I was like, no, I just know exactly how you think. Like I know exactly, and I just, and I don't know for sure that that's what you're thinking is correct or not, but I'm willing to entertain and to exchange information and stuff like that. And so that's what I was talking about earlier. This is becoming very difficult. When people use psychedelics, especially in ceremony, and then like, it's like, I got to go back because I don't know the answer. I got to go back. And like, it's got to be something different. I was like, maybe the answer was there the last time you went. And you just need to listen. You
still need to integrate into your daily life.
Yeah, exactly. Right. What are the messages that you got? What are the experiences that you received? What are the messages that you received that potentially require for you to make a change in the way that you interact with the world and with yourself, so you can have a different interaction and experience that may bring something new and that may make you happy or may solve the problem or create some sort of a solution.
Yeah.
That's the way I thought, and everything I read about psychedelics, especially with ayahuasca, was like, it is not, this is not like a magic trick. Like whatever you're going to see and experience during the ceremony is going to be a way that it will be demonstrated to you that will allow you to proceed in your life, whether it's a solution or a way of being or any of that.
It's where it still comes back to tapping into your own inner wisdom. Exactly. Same thing with tarot card readings, is that you're using them as a tool to reveal something that you already know inside. It's not this completely externalized thing.
Absolutely.
And I wonder with ayahuasca, with part of the reason people get so obsessed with coming back all the time, if that's because it has that component of the community circle. Yeah. And so people might actually be coming a good percentage for the community, but they're also getting maybe hung up on the chasing the transcendence that they experience through the actual ayahuasca.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what. So yeah, chasing the transcendence.
Which I've had my dance with too, of course, because it's like, this is a pretty dense reality, and when we have these tastes of these transcendent experiences, it's very appealing.
Oh yeah. I know. Like, one of the most interesting experiences for me was like, I remember going the first time I did an ayahuasca ceremony was with a friend. Somebody that was in Peru that was working at a retreat center that was actually teaching people and like helping people that were like wanting to actually learn and potentially,
you felt there was a lot of integrity there.
Yeah. And it was probably the worst ayahuasca experience I've ever had.
Oh no.
It was a no experience whatsoever. I'm like, and at the time, just to be very clear, like my first exposure to ayahuasca was at a point in my life where I wanted to commit suicide. Okay, so I'm very open about this because I want people to understand that's like I never participated in a ceremony with psychedelics because I wanted to have fun or because I wanted the community. I didn't even know what to expect. So I'm having this, me, my ex, and this person in my basement doing a ceremony, and every time I drank. The songs, everything, the rituals, all that happens. Like towards the end, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like this is doing nothing. And like I prepared the way that I was told to prepare, and like my ex had a really bad experience. I mean, I wouldn't say bad experience. I had a difficult experience, and so but we didn't know what to make out of it, right? And this person didn't know how to actually explain. Like to, potentially kind of say, hey, consider this, or like, sit with it. And all I remember is that towards the end, after I drank ayahuasca, I just like had this minute experience for 1 second. I just saw this like 3D drawing of a structure in front of me that did not make sense, that I was like seeing this. I didn't know what it was. And honestly, I mean, I grew up with architects, so I was thinking it was showing me some architecture of some sort, and it was like almost like this thing rotating in front of me that I can see it from all sides, and it's like almost like a suspended drawing of something. Now, would you say this is like Aya, and this is like this important experience or whatever? This experience will be like, okay, I just experienced seeing something.
A 3D model.
A 3D model. So, but afterwards I was like, I don't think I want to do this again, because I don't even know what this means. And it's just like, that was a lot of discomfort for very little outcome, that I don't even understand what it is. And this person is not able to explain what it is. Right. So after that, things got really bad for me, like to the point that I called this guy and I was like, do you know anybody else that I can sit with that's nearby? Because he lived in San Francisco, and like at the time he used to live with me. And like, do you know anyone that I can go, and because I'm desperate, man. Like, I'm at this point in my life where I just like, I don't know what to do anymore. You know, so, and this is after the brain injury happened. Like, I can't work. I'm forgetting. I can't remember. Like, and so like, it's changing my experience with everybody else. There's different things. I have different priorities. You know, I'm desperate because I don't know what this life is all about. And that was actually kind of interesting, because for the 4 or 5 years before that, I was already questioning the life experience in general. Like, I had no idea, like, why would I wake up and go to work every day, make money, buy food, buy things.
So by the second part of your 40s?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like 45 or so. And like, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out, this is bizarre. This life doesn't make any sense. I mean, yes, I have money and I can go and travel and all of that. But there's at the end of it, there's like, this life doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just a material thing. And if you have more material wealth, then you can do more material things. You can travel, you can do this, you can do that. You can buy all these nice things. You can buy I used to have an electric car. I used to have this. I used to have that. So I was like, I can do all this, but none of this, you know. And I'm a vehement, I'm like an environmentalist at heart. And I was involved in an organization that we were going to like take it to the next level and all of that. So, but still, like, couldn't understand, like there was something missing. And so I ended up, this guy was like, okay, this woman in Portland, I don't think she's that good. So apparently they had the fight in Peru. She was going, doing the training in the ayahuasca retreat center in Peru, where he was there, and he had problems with her. But he's like, she's the closest one to you. So go ahead and like, but you can connect with her. So I connected with her, and like within days, she's like, you can come to my ceremony on New Year's. This was like a week before. So I look at my ex and I'm like, do you want to go? And she was like, sure. Like, we don't have anything planned. So I'm like, okay, we're going to go. So we're going and
it's an interesting way to spend New Year's.
I know. So this amazing experience. It was a very large ceremony. There's like 30, 40 people in this big chapel in Portland.
Okay.
And we meet this lady and meet several of the people that were like helpers and musicians, and like connected with people like very quickly. And like,
Beautiful.
you know,
Nice.
I sit there and I drink. And after the first night, I'm just having the experience of my life. Like, I had no idea. Like, this is like when you're entering a territory, like, you're like, whoa. And I felt like everything I needed to know just happened that night.
Amazing.
Like, everything. Like, there's nothing else. The experience could not top. There's nothing that could top this. Right. And these visions, these experiences I still have. Like, I still remember them. And like I had somebody that like came to me and like as I was talking to him, because I was not gonna stay for the second night because I'm like, I don't think the second night can top this, so I think I'm good, I'm done. Like, can you imagine, like, you just paid for this, you set up yourself and all of that, and then I felt really good. Like, I had no negative experience as far as purging or whatever, like, which is not a negative experience, but like when you have all of this, you know. But and then somebody said, like, I'm so glad, that was so wise. Somebody says, like, just stay. Like, you stay, you'll have another amazing experience. But this is the way everybody feels after the first time. Like, that's always what I have to remember when I have somebody as a first time ceremony sitter. Like, you know, I'm very careful to make sure that if they're having the experience that I was having, to just let them know, like, no, just stay. Like, there's
more here.
There's more here to, you know, you're not going to heal in one night. You're not going to have all of this experience in one night, but it's going to feel like very, very, very strong, you know? So yeah, then the next night was even better, like 10 times better. And so then I just like learned, and I sat regularly. I was sitting every month, you know, for an entire weekend. And so this whole thing just like brought a new energy in my life. I no longer wanted to kill myself. I'm not interested in that. I wanted to find a new path. I was discovering that I was being shown some potential new path, and I was living somewhat the fallacy of this path being handed to me. But the way I ended up reading, like the way I always do things, I like read 10 books about the same freaking thing just to kind of understand. So I was like, no, it's like more like, you know, here's the, you know, it's kind of like God giving you another avenue, saying, hey, here's one way you can do this. You know, the next time you say it could be like another way. Like, here's another way. Like, obviously you're coming back. I just gave you like instructions for how you can potentially, you know, fulfill this, but obviously you're coming back. So here's potentially, there's another way you can do. There's like a million different ways. So then you realize it's like, oh, like, I mean, the bottom line is like, I have to change some things in myself of how I experience the world. And like the experience is just, you know, whether it is that you open a retreat center or you get a job or you're in your home meditating or whatever, it's just all going to lead to the same place. You know, it's different ways that you can, you know, potentially do this. And so that's kind of like, so I'm going there every month. And like, there's a lot of people that are super enjoying sitting next to me. And I dance during ceremony. And the only reason that I feel that I dance during ceremony is sometimes the ceremony experience can be very, very painful. Whatever you're experiencing can be extremely painful. Like, I experienced the fact that I was like, my mother died, and I felt like the last time that I talked to her, I was in a fight with her, and then a few days later she died. And like, the last thing you want to ever do is this amazing woman. I always thought she's an amazing mother, amazing person, very competent, very, you know, has habits that she can probably do, she could have done without. But and the night that I fought with her, it was because, you know, there were some things she was insisting on and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, and I was in Italy and I was leaving, and like, and I had this amazing experience during a ceremony where I just realized that what I was feeling at the time, that I was teaching her things, that she was actually teaching me things, instead of me teaching her things, you know? So like, and then I had this resolution during this ceremony, and I was very glad. And that's actually the last time I've actually felt my mother. Like, like, she essentially says, I'm moving on to other worlds. You're good. You know, take care of yourself. These are the tools that you have now at your disposal. Use them. Right. Same thing with another ceremony was my brother. My brother died. My oldest brother died. And I was not feeling right about things, the way things happened in the last few years, and during that experience, I understood why things happened the way they did, and why I was grateful for what he did for me, and like the things that I acknowledge about him, and the things I love about him, and so again, this understanding, and so the biggest thing that I took away after a bunch of these ceremonies is not these esoteric things that happen, and like, which is something that's very basic about ayahuasca ceremonies that they teach you, is like, when I say they, is if you were to talk to a shaman in Peru that's been doing this for all of his life, that's how they explain like what happens is when you're like 10 years old, 20 years old, whatever, you have an experience. The way you see that experience happen, like for example, you're about to cross the street in a busy area, you're with your mom, you attempt to, run into the street, she grabs you, and she saves you from being hit by a car, and then she reacts by smacking you for doing this like the 100th time, right? Because she's tired of you doing this every time. It's scaring her that you're jumping in the middle of the street, right? And so what is your interpretation that you walk away being smacked by your mom for, crossing the street? Is my mom is this evil person that smacks me. And your mom probably, that's the only time she's ever done this, right? Because she was afraid for your life and she loves you, right? But the interpretation is, this person hates me. She smacked me, because that's the only way you can interpret at that age what happened. And so the ayahuasca ceremony will allows you to see that suspended, so you can actually see what happened, that she was saving your life, and whatever she just did was just a reaction, but she loves you infinitely, and she would not want anything to happen to you. And that's when like you realize like, oh wow, like this hatred or whatever that I developed towards towards this person, or the dissatisfaction, my boss that was trying to help me avoid burning myself, and I thought it was just somebody is trying to control me and blah blah blah, would change into like, oh my gosh, like this guy like saved my life. I mean, could be, it's not always that way, but it could be, right? So that is what I think you get out of those experiences, so you can be at peace, and those things no longer dictate the way you think and distrust and the way you interact with the world, because you're realizing that sometimes this friend who is doing something, making fun of you or whatever, or giving you a hard time or whatever, may be doing it for a completely different reason than you think they're doing it. And it may be a completely good reason, or it may be a bad reason, but you are able to see it the way it is, not from the perspective of that person at that time, at that age or whatever, going through a particular, experience, difficult experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I haven't taken ayahuasca myself, but what you just articulated seems like the core of the power of that experience for healing that's actually lasting for people.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really beautiful the way you described it.
And then you can use that experience to use it as a lens into other experiences. And that's the power, and that's the gift that you've just been given. You've been given a new way of looking at things. And so now I don't have to if you, let's say like right now, you decide like, hey, I know, we're probably, we need to check time and whatever, how we're doing, how long we want to do this and whatever. But I don't have to interpret it in a particular way, other than I've loved the way we have interacted here for the last whatever amount of time, and that there is a reason why somebody is doing or interacting in a particular way. And all I need to do is just ask and figure it out and make a plan and whatever and move forward instead of like, you know, having some sort of an interpretation of how, you know, why did somebody do this or like, you know, and I just realized a lot of times that's what I do, right? It's like, you know, it's like I ruminate over certain things.
Rumination because you're trying to get to the bottom of it to figure out what the truth of it is instead of being okay with the mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So like then there's just constant rumination. So like I like in the morning when I wake up and I realize like sometimes it starts right away, and like then I have to like tame it. You know, like no.
That's the mindfulness.
No. This
part.
is like. Yeah. This is not what's, you know, just because, you know, I had this thought or I saw somebody behave in a particular way or whatever, just I have to ask and we have to figure it out and then understand. And so then we're not leaving things to like making everything into a misunderstanding that then doesn't result in anything good. You know, it just, you know, creates frustration and, you know, so that's the kind of like moving forward in my life. Like I want to live that way, and I want to. And it's difficult. It's not that easy. Like it could be difficult, and because I experienced life in a different way before, and you know now I just like have to get used to the new way of seeing things. So like, for example, like I'm like. I had this thing in my mind up to until yesterday. This is real, like happening in real time. Like I'm going to Italy for a month. I'm going to stay for part of the time with one brother and his family, for part of the day, and you know, with another brother and this family. I'd rather be here with some people in the community. Like, I'd like rather hang out with you than hang out with my brother because I like. For some reason, I have much more interesting conversations and experiences, you know, doing things that we're doing compared to like, I've already, like, I know my brother, you know. And so, and I just realized, I was like, no, like the reason I actually feel that this trip would be extremely useful and positive is because I'm going to interact, number one, with my nieces and nephews. And I'm going to bring something different into their lives. But I want to experience them the way they are. And I want to be myself. And I want to see what their interests are. And I want them to feel like there's an uncle that really loves them, that you know, wants to know them and wants to. So all of a sudden I realized this is going to be like an amazing experience because it's going to allow me to reconnect with family and like, you know. Yes, I do have, you know, some, you know, concerns because of the way they're going to interpret me, especially the older folks that are the parents and stuff like that. The way, like, I don't know what they have, how they will interpret me and how they have interpreted me for the last 20 years. Because like, I'm like this, you know, now to them, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but like for Europeans, like just to be clear, like Europeans look at Americans in general as being like crazy people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like it's just been a general thing.
Yeah, it seems like the effect of stereotyping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like I've always been like, no, like I have amazing American friends. And they're like, but they're not all Americans are the same.
But they've had like a smaller handful of experiences.
Yeah.
So then
it's the same thing. If you think Italians are the same thing,
yeah.
You know, like people in America have this particular understanding and view or experience because either movies or stories they heard.
It's the negative effects of pop culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or the French or the Middle Eastern or Russians or whatever, right? So we have these like already made up ideas because of popular culture and movies and stuff like that. So that's what I'm trying to like, because to me, what they try to assert every time I see them is like, here's our American brother. And there's so many connotations associated with saying that. Right.
So you're getting attached to like all this cultural baggage just by being American.
Yeah. Because so all the negative things about Americans, that's all I am.
Just projected onto you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's so weird.
It's really weird.
And I'm like, you should see my American friends. They're like completely different than what you think, you know. But there are people.
There are people here that are like
exactly
what
like the
you're
stereotype.
thinking.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that everybody. So exactly, it's a wholesale kind of approach.
Yeah, so it's
to the world.
If people could just develop a little more nuance in their interpretations, that would help.
So one thing, like there is an essence to who I am that like I think you should know, and I think everybody should know, is like I was, when I was born in Beirut, I was the foreigner because I was the Italian, right? And in Beirut, I was never Lebanese. I was almost given the citizenship by the president of Lebanon, and like somehow it didn't happen towards the last minute. And I ended up always, because I had to give up my Italian passport if I was to become a Lebanese citizen. For some reason, like didn't happen. So I'm like still an Italian citizen, right? And so in Lebanon, I was always looked at as a foreigner because I was definitely the Italian. My name is Paolo. My last name is Coppa. So there's no error there. Like this guy's a foreigner. Is not Hamid. Is not like, you know, Hanna or whatever. He's like the foreigner that lives among us, but we love Italians. So it's great. Like it's good to have this guy around because like, you know, it's cool. He brings in a different perspective. Although I was like pretty much 100%. I was born in Lebanon and grew up in Lebanon. So like I was pretty much 100% like in culturally raised, but would influence the French and Italian influence because of my parents. Then I moved to Italy, and in Italy, I discovered that I'm not accepted in Italy, and I'm not viewed as Italian. They're like, you're Lebanese. Like, yeah, you might have a nationality, your name might be Paolo, your parents might be Italian, but you sound like a foreigner to us, and then you grow up like you don't do things the way we do it. And so now I'm being fucking treated also differently and negatively this time by my own people. So in Lebanon, I was treating amazingly well because I'm Italian. In Italy, I'm treating like shit because I'm not really Italian. And then I moved to the US. I go to school. I become a citizen. I have kids. Every single one. I don't even have Italian friends.
What age were you when you moved to the U.S.?
I moved to the U.S. I was 23.
Okay.
So, like, I don't have Italian friends. I don't have French friends. I don't have Lebanese friends. I have American friends, like not about 100%. I actually have my probably a small contingency of German guys that are like also living in the same area that I lived. I interacted with them, so they're also my friends, but they're like a small minority, right? And so, but I'm the foreigner here too. So I am a foreigner to everybody, including my own people, including the people I was raised and grew up with.
That's a really interesting trip to be on.
I know.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, but I'm all, you know, I have several passports, you know, because I'm able to have the European passport. I'm an American citizen, you know, so I'm like, but I like don't identify with any of it other than it's a convenience. Like if I'm going to Europe, I'm taking my European passport. There's no issues at the border. I can go through. There's no questioning exaggerated crap that you get like when you come into the US or Canada or whatever. And so when I come back to the US, I'll show my American passport. Yeah, hey, I'm an American citizen. And then nobody gives me crap for. But like, that's the part that I try to encourage people in general, that if they've never left this country, they never lived anywhere else, they never lived in another part of the country itself. Like if you were born in the Northwest and you don't move anywhere to just experience another place, potentially, hopefully another country, but like even a different place in your own country, you know, that's kind of strange to me that somehow we end up having this, you know, whatever pride that we have about being from a particular place, as if we chose to be in that particular place. I didn't choose to be born in Lebanon, to be from Italian family. I was just accidentally born there. I'm the result of, sperm. There's no supreme power that made me this great citizen of this great country that's better than everybody else. Because everybody thinks that way about their own country, by the way. The Lebanese think that way. Italians think that way. Germans think that way. Russians think that way. Americans think that way. They believe
in general, national pride. Yeah.
National pride that and for some reason, where I was born is better than everybody else and is better than everything else. And even the people that don't say that, think that, and the people that actually do that are very small fraction that truly, acknowledge. I was born in America. I'm fucking lucky. I have American citizenship. I'm very lucky. I live in the Northwest. Yes, it is a good part of the country. It is good part of the world as well. It's one of my favorite places, like in Seattle, Portland, or Oregon, whatever. That is, but it is a strange thing that somehow, we have this strong preference to the place that we were born, and we build this whole story around it and how we're special. It's that makes people in Africa, people in South America, not be very special people. Somehow you are being prejudicial towards those people because you think they're in a crappy place, but they are very proud to be South African as well. And they think it's the best thing in the world. And their families teach them to be proud of themselves. And, but it's kind of a strange thing to come to those conclusions, So when people ask me, where are you from? And, I'm a citizen of the world, yeah. And I don't think there's anything special in where I was born.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything special that I'm American. People will be like, are you American? Yes, I am American. I have American citizenship. Okay. There's nothing special about me being Italian too and being European. And I'm very grateful that I have these options, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to travel, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to choose. And that's the other part is a lot of people don't realize is there's people that they're stuck in the place, in the poverty, in the war, and all these things, and they don't even have the ability to choose. They don't have the ability to leave their country. And do you think they're somehow less special in the eyes of God? Do you really want to do that? Do you want to say that my God is better than your God, and and your God is weak, or your God is evil, or whatever? It's no, man, go free if you can these people from the handcuffs, the real handcuffs that have been placed on them that they can't do. They have to deal with poverty. They have to deal with oppression. They have to deal with all these things. And if you don't deal with any of it, just consider yourself fortunate and see if you can spread that fortune around and do something every day if you can,
in your own way that you feel called, that's authentic and not. I think that's, some people have a lot of guilt around thinking they're not doing enough.
Oh yeah.
Or that they have to do.
I do too sometimes.
A certain prescribed way of spreading that, but it really will come from the inside, and it'll be an authentic calling about how to spread that to people.
That's what we're talking about, the meals.
Yeah.
The feeding people.
Could be that simple. And just making people food.
Yeah, making people food.
Their own community.
Providing some sort of a comfort, and maybe there's something that they can't have, they don't have, they're
creating
unable to.
Community gatherings so that people can feel more connected and get out of depression. That's another thing. That could be as simple as a party.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you before we close here, you had started telling me about this intentional community that you might be visiting, where it's this very amazing
Damanhur.
Yes. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Damanhur is a community. I'll give you a brief history of it. It's it's a community that I think was established in the 70s in northern Italy, where they wanted to do something different. And Falco is the actual, the one that actually started all this, right? And they wanted to figure out, I think it's the way they describe themselves as this intentional community. And they wanted to create it somewhere in a particular part of the world that they thought, or the particular part of Italy that they thought would be the best place. And they actually went on a trip together all over trying to figure out, and there was like within like 10 miles from where they were at.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. And so they just they started digging with shovels at night. They started digging holes in the ground to start to create this kind of a small little city underground. And they were afraid that they will attract attention to themselves during the day. So they would do it at night, and they would only use shovel. They would not use machinery with mortars or anything like that, because they were worried about like the neighbors, the lands next to them, like hearing that and like questioning. And so they actually did all this by digging with shovels. And eventually they started, once they were deep in the earth, like, and they started using machinery, and they start creating these structures. And there was like, it's almost like a 3 layers underground. And so they, a little bit of history as well is like, then they established themselves as a community. They were still worried about like the police finding out. They're trying to figure out like, so I don't know if there's any psychedelic. I've never heard anything about like if they were using psychedelics or not, or what they were doing. But I think they were worried about being actually labeled as a cult. And if you're a cult in Italy, you're going to have the whole country going after you. Okay. And so they had a carabinieri, chief of carabinieri. So it's kind of like the police, but this like the military police, essentially go and like with a whole contingent of cars and armed people, they wanted to go in and see and bust them and like expose this group. And like they went underground and they looked around, and this guy walked out and gave a speech on the TV about how he wants to protect this community because they've done these amazing things. So they have these like halls of stained glass, and they have these dance halls, and they have these rooms. And so they do various different things in the room, and they created a community where they actually, they're self-sufficient. They all live almost like there's a compound, and there's like each person lives in a different kind of like apartment type thing, and they actually plant their own food. They have their own pharmacy. They actually sell to the community to bring, cash. They had their own currency as well at some point. I don't know if they do that again. So, and they celebrate solstices, and they have these amazing outdoor things with columns and like, so that's a beautiful.
Sounds incredible. Yeah. And I love how it started like a quiet revolution,
It is.
like with the digging.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. How many people are part of it roughly? Do you know?
I think I'll have to check again, but the way they built it, I think it goes up to a certain number. I can't remember if it was like several hundred or a couple thousand people.
Okay.
That are in this place. I think it's more like several hundred, and they create. I can't remember. I can tell you, it's like you can ask them permission if you want to build a community as part of Damanhur in other parts of the world, and you can get kind of authorization from them and the knowledge and experience of how to do it. It's called the Federation. So you can actually build your own federation in other parts of the world as long as you kind of follow the same guidelines that they do.
Template. Yeah. Very cool.
And so that's kind of what I was interested in, like potentially going there and potentially seeing if there's interest here. But like all of a sudden, I'm like, people here talking about it in many different places. So I'm thinking, oh, this is an interest. So maybe this is something that can be done. Like people bringing together, and it's like almost like building a community retreat center, having your own food, song circles, whatever kind of, they do ceremonies regularly for spring and winter, and then like different holidays, but they're not following the regular schedule of Christian holidays and like New Year's and all of that stuff. So
It sounds like a very beautiful vision for bringing more of that sort of thing into this country.
yeah, so that'll be fun. So that's why I'm not gonna go there. Probably I'm not gonna end up there in like on this trip, but I'm gonna plan like a trip in a few months, and that's what I'm certain about, like what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to hear your experience when you go there. Maybe we can do another podcast with that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the conversation. This has been really great. I think we covered a lot of really interesting ground.
Awesome. I'm hoping, that this will be like the first of many that we can do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paolo.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.